Welcome to my channel. If this is your first time here, my name is Shireen and I just finished filming this look. So if you want to see how I did this to my face, then just keep on watching. Since it was really important to me that what I create is anatomically correct, I found a picture online that I decided to use as my model. I then took a slanted brow brush and I dipped that into my Makeup Forever Professional Makeup Paints, is I believe what they are. Not completely sure. Anyway, I used that product to outline the portion of my face that I was going to do the muscle kind of detailing on. I then went in and I drew in all the muscles and the tendons that were going to comprise the look. I wanted to do this because I wanted to have placement for everything from the beginning. I'm sectioning off my nose here because I wanted to keep that as just skin. But anyway, so I wanted to have everything in place already and to just go in and color them in later on. I thought that would be a little bit easier to do. So here I am just drawing everything in. And then you'll get to see me shade it in a second. And I sped it up just because I figured it wasn't that important for you to see or be able to follow exactly what I'm doing, since you could just as easily find an image online and copy that should you wish to do this look. And the parts that I'm shading in are just to kind of separate things from each other, because I wasn't using very, very precise lines, and sometimes things seem to get a little bit blurry. So I just shaded in things to show that they were distinct from the things surrounding them. There we go. But yeah, a lot of detailing. This bit definitely took a little while and it took a little patience to get everything in place, but I think it was definitely the move. Okay, so then I took my NARS Weightless Luminous Foundation in the shade Santa Fe Medium 2. You'll notice that this shade was a bit light for me, and I chose something that was a little bit lighter because the product that I was going to use to create the dripping flesh effect later on is lighter than my skin tone, so I just wanted my foundation to match that as opposed to my skin, since you wouldn't see that much of it anyway. Then I took the Tarte Shape Tape. I used both the shades Medium and Light Medium Honey as my concealer, and I also used that as a base for my eyeshadow. Now I'm taking the Laura Mercier Loose Translucent Setting Powder and using that to set my concealer and the base for my eyeshadow. That's a Morphe brush, by the way. Then I took the Modern Renaissance palette and I used the shade Burnt Orange in my crease. I wanted to do a pretty subtle eye look since I didn't really want the eyeshadow to distract from the rest of the makeup look, but I did want some eyeshadow on. So first I used a more precise blending brush to get the color in, and then I blended it out with an even fluffier blending brush. Now I took Red Ochre and Cypress Umber, I think, and used that to darken up the crease. Notice that I'm keeping the color concentrated in the crease and not on the eyelid itself. So just blending that out. Now I'm doing my brows using the Precisely My Brow product from Benefit in the shade 6. I'm just doing them the way that I always do them. And now I'm taking the brow gel, also from Benefit, to keep them in place. This is my regular brow routine, nothing special. Then I took the Kat Von D tattoo liner. I think this was with the brush tip, and I tried to do a cat eye using that. But as you'll see, I was pretty unsatisfied with the color that I was depositing. It was coming off kind of patchy and not as black as I wanted, and it was making it difficult for me to do the cat eye. So then I switched to my Makeup Forever ink liner, and I think you can see this on camera, but it's immediately much darker than the Kat Von D eyeliner was. This is my favorite eyeliner. It can be a little bit harder to use, because of the tip and because it's a fairly liquid formula, but it's super dark and on me it stays in place. So I'm taking my House of Lashes lash glue, and then these are also House of Lashes falsies, but they're the Tinkerbells, and I think they've been out of stock for a while. I just chose them because they're a fairly natural looking lash. Now I'm taking Burnt Orange on the lower lash line, and then I'm taking a Makeup Forever single shadow. This is M742, also on the lash line to kind of tie together that look. So now I'm mixing together something that's roughly a flesh color. I want this to form the base for the muscle. So I mixed in the yellow, the kind of like pinky peach shade, and the white shade from the Makeup Forever palette, and I colored in the base for this big chunk of muscle. Then I took the shade Buon Fresco from the Modern Renaissance palette, and I used that to begin shading in around the muscle. So you can see how that's depositing. It's actually laying really well on top of a wet base, which I was happy with. And then I took Venetian Red and did a little bit more shading, and the color that you see there is Railgar. These are both from the Modern Renaissance palette from Anastasia Beverly Hills, and then I took the Makeup Forever single shadow and used some red to shade it in. Everything looks pretty messy at this point, which is okay. I'm blending out the shades a little bit with one of the brushes that I used. It wasn't too important to keep my brushes clean since everything was getting mixed up anyway, and it's muscle, so you don't have to worry about muddiness. Okay, so now I took a more precise brush and I dipped it into, I think, Venetian Red or Love Letter. They're pretty similar shades, and I used it to create more precise striations. I made it particularly dark around the brow bone, and then I took the single shadow and did the same thing, so you have a mix of pinks and reds to get that muscle look. I then took an even slimmer, like a detail brush from Morphe, and then I mixed in something roughly flesh colored, a little bit more yellow toned, and I'm going to use that detail brush to add some lighter striations, some almost white striations, again to make it look a little bit more like actual muscle. This is sped up a lot. My hand doesn't actually move that fast. But yeah, I did go fairly fast. You don't have to be that precise. They don't have to be perfectly parallel. I'm using my finger to add in a little bit light color to create more of a gradient in the base, and then overlaying it with more striations again to create that precision. I'm paying particular attention to the brow bone because in the anatomical structure it looked like the muscles were more distinct there. So now I'm filling in some of the cartilage and the fat around the nose. Actually, no, more detailing, sorry. Making it look more like muscle. Okay, now I'm filling in some of the cartilage around the nose, and I think maybe some bone would be exposed there. Oh, no, that's definitely tendons and ligaments. Okay, so now detailing in some of the muscles. You can see that suddenly I'm in focus. That's because it was a separate shot. My camera doesn't always focus on me, but you can see me much better now. Okay. Just following the details on the anatomical structure, creating a base for the muscle surrounding the eye socket. I thought that I was able to cover my eyebrow adequately with the Makeup Forever paints, and I wasn't happy with them, so I took some concealer over it. I'm not completely happy with how covered up my brow is. Something that you could do that I've seen other YouTubers or makeup artists do is use Elmer's glue to cover up the brow and then go over that with some kind of paint. I haven't done that personally, but I'm assuming that they do that because it creates a tacky base. Anyway, just going back in with those same shades from the Modern Renaissance palette. Those shades are Buon Fresco, Railgar, and Love Letter / Venetian Red. Creating more striations using my finer tipped brush. Again, just to make it look more like muscle. I use the same techniques over and over again, although as you'll see in the very sped up version, I didn't create that wet base on the smaller muscles. I figured that it wasn't as important, and I was just going to add extra steps, going in with that single shadow again to bring some red to the pinky tones that we have going on and make it look a little bit more like living muscle as opposed to dead muscle. So I just alternated between the striations and buffing everything out with that brush. And then once again, I went in with the detailing brush and created those lighter color striations towards the center. All of this was again coming primarily from the image that I was following as my model. Same techniques that I used in the section above. I went a little bit overboard with the lighter colors there, so I tried to go back and correct that using some darker shades. Okay. And then I moved on to the rest of the face from here. So the color that I'm using right now is fairly yellow, and I think it was largely because, especially the areas that are peeking through the cheeks that was supposed to be fat, you have a good amount of fat in your cheeks, which I've seen when I was dissecting the face. So that's what would be kind of peeking out between the muscles. And then as you can see, I didn't use a wet base. I just went in straight with that detail brush and created those fine back and forth lines, overlaying them on top of each other so that you couldn't really see the base underneath it as much. And then going back over that with the lighter color to give the illusion of striated muscle. So this is going to look pretty similar onwards. Again, following the patterns that I'd set, which I'm glad that I had in place, so that I don't have to keep switching between tools and I can use the same couple of brushes back and forth to create the look that I wanted. I sped this up a little bit more because it was going to get fairly redundant. I think that this look took me maybe 90 minutes to do, which is pretty good, considering that I often spend around 3 hours. And it is because you don't have to be very precise. Like, there is a lot of detail work that goes into it, but you can afford to be imprecise, and that makes it go much, much faster. I don't think that this is a particularly difficult look, and the products that I used cooperated with me overall pretty well, except for the dripping flesh, but you'll see that in a second. I only show this left half of my face. You won't really see the kind of lower portion from the right half because it's literally identical to the corresponding portion from the other side. So I didn't really bother to include that. There you go, getting some red in there. Trying to be precise with my brush strokes, but not so precise that it doesn't look real. So as you can see, for the larger sections, I did end up putting down the wet base. And just the muscles around my mouth. Sorry, there's not that much to say yet. Just the same techniques. But don't worry, it's about to get exciting because I'm about to do the dripping flesh. And that went kind of messy. Oh, something that I should mention is that I also used Cypress Umber to deepen up some of the areas of the muscle where I saw more darkness in the model that I was following. So that is a color that I used as well and didn't mention. So I'm doing that here, just going back over it, and then I'm putting foundation on the tip of my nose because that's something I forgot earlier. So now we get to see the product that I used for the dripping flesh. This is the Mehron 3D Gel. You have to heat it up before you use it, so you just boil water and then you put the container in the boiling water. It gets pretty hot, so something to be aware of. Let it cool just a touch so that it's comfortable on your hands before you put it on your face. And I definitely recommend having a towel on your lap when you do this. This got all over the place. And another difficulty that I guess should have anticipated but didn't really is that this is going to drip along the contours of your face and in whatever direction your head is tipped. So for me, it was super tempting and really easy to tilt my head as I dripped it, because that way I could see better and felt like I had more control, but it meant that some of the drops went in a different direction than I wanted. So something to account for when you're doing this. And that's the last step. You can see that the flush has fully dried, and that's how it looks dripping down my face. I hope that you had fun watching this and that you come back for my next video. For now, happy Halloween.